Pete in London, and today Michaela and I are going to look at the chart of Pisces and the new moon, and we're going to be discussing what that has in store for us over the coming month ahead. I believe that new moons, Michaela, is that right, that they work out over a month ahead when we have a new moon?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
And then is it that a full moon is 2 weeks and that it works out over the 2 weeks ahead, the following 2 weeks? I've heard it.
Sorry, go on.
I've heard it said before, so I just wondered your view on that, how we work out.
Yeah, it does work out, but I don't think you can say it's in an absolute time frame. It's like every moon phase has a sequence that can be actually long ranging. So it's like, yes, this is when it comes to light, whether it's a new moon and it doesn't come to light, it's the seed of something, and something you don't know is, will have to be confronted because it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Or it's the full moon in which you see, oh God, this is the full outcome of that.
Oh wow, okay. So we've got we're planting something new at this time.
Well, we're planting, but it's already been planted, is the thing too. It's already existing, but we're now beginning to be aware of it. So as soon as the new moon hits, it's going to start coming light. It's going towards, being seen. So we are becoming aware that this seed is there, not that it's only just been planted. It might have been planted, God knows when. You can trace all these phases back and back and back, depending on what track you're in, what subject, what event you're tracking. But you can track everything back, God, as far as you like. But it's what you're seeing, it's how it's developed, what part of the picture, with the whole chart, with the whole, all the transits put together, which are part of the whole picture that moon phase is highlighting. So it's part of a whole story. It's a whole dialogue. It's not isolated. So this is part of our story. You could say the story of society right now and the individual, and we're seeing this facet of it develop.
Okay, so this moon is happening tomorrow. It's on the March 13th, and it's going to be 2:21 a.m. which is early morning in California. In New York, it's 5:21 a.m. And in the UK, it's going to be 10:21. I think you're an hour ahead where you are. Are you an hour ahead?
Yeah.
You are. So then what we've got is that this is the actual chart that's occurring. And we can see that we have Venus and the moon and Neptune and the sun all involved with this. We've got Chiron in Aries, and you can see that we've also got Uranus in Taurus, and Mars is in Gemini. Mars is actually going to be going over the North Node, which will be an interesting video to do as well, I think, in the upcoming week. I think it's about 2 weeks away. Maybe it was the end of March. And then we've got Pluto coming to its closure eventually in a few years in the sign of Capricorn. And then we've got the Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury in the sign of Aquarius at the moment. So these are on the aspects that you see on this screen. This is, there's a lot more aspects, but this is the 3 degrees. We're just looking at the closer orbs on this. So the sun conjuncts the moon on a new moon, and the sun is also on Neptune. The moon is on Neptune. And Venus is also on Neptune. And we've also got, and they're all on top of each other, basically. They're all conjunct. Saturn is squared to Uranus still. And then Chiron is sextile to Mars and also to Saturn. So we'll look at that also. With the, this is just a lovely picture I found of, it looks like a mermaid, but it's probably not a mermaid. I would say it's not a mermaid, but it looks like a mermaid.
Yeah, beautiful.
It is a beautiful picture. I don't know where it was. Somebody posted that on Facebook, so I grabbed that picture. It's really beautiful. The rocks in the background are beautiful. Yeah. But with Pisces, we have these are some key words here. We can have astral glamour. We can have addiction, escapism, where we can be hopeless, helpless. We can have weak boundaries. And because the ruler is Neptune as well, we take that into account. There can be illusions, the savior, the martyr, the persecuted, disillusionment, victim. This can be where there can be alcoholism as well. Surrender, it's a subconscious, transcendence, it's fantasy, loss of identity, innocence, the suffering, the wounded, and isolation and confusion, and the dreamer, and disbelief, and drugs and guilt, the collective guilt also in the individual, because we do have the opposite, which is the Virgo. In evolutionary astrology, Michaela, we have, we look at the polarity, don't we? So we look at the polarity. Would we include the polarity in the moon, of the moon in being in Pisces?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely. Virgo. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Virgo words then are where we have discipline, we can have shame, perfection. It's our place in society. The inferiority. It's to do with service on the up note there, and also the apprentice, and humility and humiliation. Again, victim, self-improvement, health. It's where we can be overly critical and be filled with guilt and crisis, and it's to do with healing. And actually this a year ago we had the full moon, didn't we, in Virgo around this week, a year ago, the full moon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, when we went into lockdown, as you said before, wasn't it?
Yeah. And this is my chart, so I thought we could look at two charts here, and we could see my chart and your chart, just to maybe explain to people how it would work. So looking at my chart with your eye, because I love the way you see things, Michaela. I feel that when I've shown you charts, I get so much out of what you see more than I see, because we all see different things. And
I feel the same about your perspective. And that's the thing, as you say, we see different things that we might not have noticed otherwise.
Absolutely. So the new moon in Pisces, it's we've got the moon, which is the emotions, instincts, roots, and mother, and not just mother like in biological, but the idea of the archetype of mother in society and in the world. And also the moon symbolizes here where we delve into the unconscious and we turn to the past to indulge in feelings. And the moon in Pisces has great sensitivity, it's perceptiveness of surroundings, and we can experience feelings of insecurity with it in Pisces and be passive and only wait to see what happens. So we want to watch out for that we're not just, sitting around waiting for things, that we're digging a bit deeper to understand ourselves. It can be very creative and put us on a spiritual search with it in Pisces. And also we can have a greater imagination with the Pisces because of the Neptune, which is beyond this, beyond this realm, beyond the five senses. And also with my chart here, you can see that it's actually hitting my IC, which is the just at 20 degrees. So it's really kicking in there with a lot of my planets here. I don't know what you see. I mean, I know that this Neptune is in my 3, or the Venus is in my 3 conjunct the Neptune. What would this symbolism mean? Have you got any ideas of the moon and all of these conjuncting together, Michaela?
Well, the Venus involvement and the Neptune, it all seems very idealistic, doesn't it? But as you say, there's something about the victim as well. It was interesting because we're seeing it in the world, about the we were talking about it, the interview with
Meghan
and Harry, and
yeah.
But I mean, that really encapsulates, it's like all these people have different opinions. Some are saying, oh my God, isn't this terrible? And look what they've been through. And the other half of people are saying, this is a complete fake.
Yeah.
So and this is it. So we're seeing these two completely different sides, and we have to sort of make our way through all of this. But I mean, Pisces, yes, it can talk, as you said, it can talk about victimhood, and it can talk about disillusion and illusion and too much idealism. But on the other side, it is very spiritual. So it would seem like, and right now, of course, Mercury is sort of clouded in it. It's interesting because on the England's chart, as you've got there, the ascendant in England when the new moon occurs
Oh, okay.
is at the Antarctic degree of Gemini. So it's right at the end of Gemini, 29 degrees. You can see up there.
Oh, wow.
It falls in your 7th, 8th house.
Okay.
7th, at the end of the 7th. And it's conjunct your Jupiter. So that's squaring the new moon, and but it's trining Mercury. So it's interesting. So the ruler of the ascendant is trine to the ascendant. So our way through all of this confusion and possible illusion and even lies in some respect
Yeah.
is to use our Mercury function to actually break things down and look at things logically and distance ourselves and detach. Mercury is in Aquarius still.
Exactly. And what's interesting is it's actually conjunct here to asteroid Lilith.
Wow, look at that. Yeah, exactly.
And asteroid Lilith, the mythology in simple terms, I'm sure it's a lot deeper, but would say that, you know, she fled from the Garden of Eden. She had nothing to do with it because she thought it was a load of nonsense to have to lay below Adam, and she didn't want to. So Adam was was given Eve, who was more compliant, and Lilith was sent off, and she was fled to the ocean, where she was told, you know, the story says, where she was, you know, accused of stealing babies and eating them, as an example, along those lines, which is a heavy story.
It is, yeah. The whole thing about Lilith, and then at the moment it seems like Lilith's been taken and is made a heroine of as a powerful woman, which, I mean, that is that side to the figure of Lilith, but there is the other side that she is actually a demon. So you've got to consider both sides of it and not get taken by one side. You've got to look at the other side of it and consider different facets again of even that mythology.
Well, I think this is happening with them, you know, listening to Sam Vaknin earlier on narcissism, where he's explaining, you know, the problems that are being caused between the masculine and the feminine, in reality, not the inner, but the outer also, of the male-female relationships at the moment, of how messy they're getting, and that things, you know, falling to pieces between people, in having the nurture that we could have from healthier relations, because of the way people are asserting themselves or not asserting themselves, or, you know, so it sort of ties in with the Lilith, where the balance would be, the resolution would be the true Lilith, which is currently at 18 degrees of 18 degrees of Taurus at the moment. And for all of us, this is the collective on the outside of this chart. So I think that the way ahead is really, you know, the thinking. What would you, I mean, Lilith, I would say, with Mercury, because that will go across. Mercury moves faster than Lilith does, so that's going to go across. So, you know, the way we look at society, as well as, you know, possibly even the royal idea that, you know, families have got to be perfect, and the differences of thinking.
Yes, exactly. This is what the whole thing really is coming down to. Mercury is the differences in thinking, that we don't all think alike, and yet we do have these certain similarities, but in different degrees. Like you were talking about the Wetiko, the mind virus.
Absolutely. The book by Paul Levy, which you introduced me to, a brilliant book. Which
is the shadow too, Jung's shadow. So we're not really aware of our shadow, but that we absolutely, and this chart is really saying you absolutely need to examine your shadow and the shadow in others. Don't take things on surface face value, because we have to then go into our own shadow and other people's and really see it. So, I mean, that's, and that's, in your chart, that's, you know, that's, as we said before, that's hitting your asteroid, isn't it? Your asteroid at 23 degrees in your chart in the 3rd house. So it's, so, you know, the mid.
Oh, absolutely. That you mean that's true. So, so I see what you mean. So the from here to there, from the Mercury.
It's really in a T-square.
Yeah,
So it's the focal point, in other words. So it's saying, okay, really look at this and communicate it, and you are communicating it,
I am.
your
I
work.
am.
And but it needs to be exact. So there's a process of examination first, get a different perspective, and also use the Neptunian function. You know, Neptune and Pisces and everything isn't all illusion. It's also intuition.
And faith, you said, and
And
also
faith.
having faith.
Yeah, having faith. And it's also cutting through, and so the intuition can be the thing that actually is the thing that confirms something. So the logic, the Mercury function, presents all the facts,
Yeah.
but it's the intuition that actually confirms the facts. So but the discernment has to come first. You have to use your mind, and then you have to use your intuition. But that's what we need to cut through cut through all this Wetiko virus, which is really, we're seeing it. We're seeing it in the world now. We're seeing it, and that's why everyone's going berserk, because we've never seen it to this extent on a world global level. And it's rather a lot to take in. And this shows in this chart. It's like we have to take in all of this, and it's freaking a lot of us out. But the thing is, just to take it back to the Mercury function, break it down logically, and then use your intuition. And spiritually, you will, like Jung said, you get synchronicities, you get signs that will confirm
You
something.
do. I mean, I do in dream state
Yeah,
as well. Definitely I see things. It also with the Venus conjunct Neptune, in a standard sort of way, the characteristics can be responsible for disappointments and mistakes, and fantasies are closer to them than reality. Because if we look at Venus, it's in evolutionary astrology, we know that we look at that's from a needs aspect, our inner needs as well.
yeah.
And it's also, transcendent and mysticism, and there can be magic there as well.
Yeah.
And I think that we've got the Mars actually is trying to Saturn as well. The Mars,
Yeah.
if we look at the collective, we'll look at your chart as well, but we've got the Mars up here, which is trying to Saturn, which is here at the moment.
Which again is in Mercury's sign in Gemini. So again, it's saying, instead of getting angry, a lot of people are getting very angry.
Yeah,
They get very heated and offended.
absolutely.
But and that's Mars. But the thing is, the Mars is in Gemini, so the way through that is to, count to 10 before you actually say something, because you might be on the wrong track, and you might actually, you might act Mars before you think. So it's good to think first before you actually act and say something.
And then also that Saturn is square to Uranus, and I think it can be
Yeah.
seen as chaotic and having no principles with the Saturn squaring Uranus as well.
Oh yes,
We can be unpredictable.
that,
So we have the
yeah,
unpredictable.
that's in effect. God, it's for a year, is it, or it's
Yeah, that's all year, isn't it?
all year, and so that is actually that's the hub of the main aspect, the main outer planetary aspect that's going on now is this Saturn, as you say, the Saturn square Uranus. So that should never be forgotten. So in every chart, look back to that and say, okay, so it comes down to this, as you say, the Saturn square Uranus. So that Uranus is going off at a tangent, but then in some ways it is unearthing all of this stuff. Taurus, it's in Taurus. So it's unearthing all this stuff for a reason, because it has to come to our attention.
Yeah. So we
Like,
also
yeah,
where logic,
that's to
not being
happen
too rigid. Hey, in our logic, not being
not
too
too
rigid.
rigid, and because it's setting the cat among the pigeons, literally, and so it is upsetting the apple cart, using another metaphor.
Yeah.
But because you have to have chaos before you have, and like you were saying about the sexes and everything, it's seeming to be worse before it's better, because actually what it is, it's not worse.
Yeah.
It's that we're seeing it. We're seeing so much more than we did. And so that Uranus, it's upsetting the status quo, but it's for a good reason, because it has to be upset. The chaos has to reign first, but we have to, and it's great because the chart shows us the way through the chaos.
Absolutely. And the node is still square Neptune, but it's separating. We'll skip over to your chart in a minute, but the node is it's square to Neptune. So what's interesting is what's coming up as that we're getting some clarity. I thought that in my mind when those nodes were square to Neptune, I sort of saw it as things not being clear, but as it's separating, maybe clarity is sort of coming as well.
Yeah,
I'm going to skip over to your chart here.
Oh.
So this is your chart, and you know, you've got actually you've got your node there on the moon as well at the moment.
Sure, and all that Pisces is in my first house, of course. So,
and of course, and that's so that wouldn't that sort of, although that's separating, the Neptune is squaring.
Yeah,
it's coming out of a square to your moon, isn't it? It has been.
Yeah, and you've got Neptune and Venus almost, well, it's squaring my Saturn. Yeah, that's the closest aspect, probably.
So up here, so the Saturn in your it looks on the 9th here on the cusp, maybe
yeah,
it's
tipping into it is conjunct the midheaven, so it is tipping into.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's squaring all of this down here. So people would need to look at their charts to get this, you know, to look at it deeper and not overlook the depth of a chart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the larger aspect, the larger transit of that obviously is Neptune squaring my Saturn, which will be in operation for quite a while because Neptune is slow moving. So, and I have looked at that coming up, thought, oh, ill health, or what is that? You know, it's like I've gone through all of that stuff. I went through it over my ascendant, and it was a huge experience, actually, you know, and it taught me a lot. And it taught me a lot about, as you said, going with the flow and actually not making your mind up, not being too rigid. And that's, I think, what this Neptune squaring Saturn is. It's saying it's telling the Saturn not to be too rigid, to go with the flow and trust and go into the unconscious too, and to look at the signs and take it easy without getting too emotional, because the Venus is there too.
Yeah.
You know, don't get too emotional about it, and the moon is there, and the new moon and everything else. But actually draw your emotions back and yeah, let Saturn actually be logical about it and a bit distant, like we were saying. It's the Mercury in Aquarius,
Absolutely.
which is up there at my 12th in this case.
And then we got the node, and that node is actually moving into a trine with Saturn as well up here, as you know, as they meet up.
Yes. So it's really saying, I mean, it's saying in all our charts, but particularly, for me in that case with the moon in Gemini, I mean, I've had the node obviously has been opposing my Saturn already, the North Node and the South Node on my Saturn. So the past has come up quite a lot for me with the South Node conjunct Saturn. And so things have been triggered, and I've gone through quite a lot of that. But it is a fact, it is a point of, with the North Node in Gemini, making sense of it. It's the same message reiterated again and again. Okay, it's emotional, it's haunting to some extent, but these things are haunting and they're emotional for a reason. They're knocking on your door for a reason, because they need attention. So give them attention, detach your emotions as much as possible, but don't detach completely from them, don't deny them, but absorb what you're being shown through all that Piscean universal connection. It's all about connections.
And I think we're getting clearer as well as those nodes, you know, the square of the node moves off Neptune as well. And then with that node trine into Saturn, which is applying it's where we can basically, we're sort of being pushed into overcoming our challenges, because we have these challenges right now, not knowing. We saw today, and you know, I won't go into the politics or the vaccinations or decisions of people, but we can see that, you know, where there are problems, and maybe that then things need to be tweaked in order that we can begin to be moving forward, you know, and get moving again in society.
It's all about not taking things on face value too, and actually do question. You know, we're learning that, we're being shown it all the time. Question, don't just take things on what you see on the surface. and Saturn is about restructuring. So there's a lot that needs restructuring, but it's, yeah, first we have to delve into the meaning underneath.
Absolutely. What I was going to do was go back to this chart here, because although I didn't bring my solar fire up today, and I won't be able to come out of this and go back to that, I'll confuse the video. So I just thought if we look at this chart here, with also with the Pluto up here, which was this interesting, but we can see that we do have Saturn trining Mars as well. We've got Saturn trine Mars.
Yeah, Mars closing in on that trine. Yeah.
Is this Pluto sextiling all of this here? This is, I mean, looks quite, you know, the sextile.
Yeah. So that's all very helpful. That's all very. So we've got a lot of help there. It's just realizing that we have, and finding those resources which already exist in ourselves. We just have to acknowledge that they're there. Yeah.
And then the node, I think, let's see, the node square Venus as well, which is separating. So the node square Venus, so Venus is up here as well, and that's separating as well.
Yes.
So, because of course, Venus moves quite quickly. Bless her. She moves 224 days, I believe, if I'm right. So really this looks like, I mean, what would be the overall message of this chart, do you think? I mean, we've basically said, but I think for people to not get lost in their, you know, to not feel like a victim at this time.
Exactly. Yeah, those feelings of victimization, actually, yes, acknowledge that your emotions, but don't be sucked down into them, into some sort of, you know, vortex.
And also, yes, I felt that today a little bit, because I felt a little bit womey, and then I thought, well, you know, actually, I get there's so many ways I get looked after, and there's so many things to be grateful for, and we, you know, it's not going around being, you know, bypassing reality. So, you know, not just.
But everything teaches us something, you know. The Saturn there, everything is teaching us. We are being shown and we're being taught. So we need to be open to that and actually realize, even if something seems negative, it's for a reason. It's to show us. And
absolutely, because we keep, you know, we keep moving forward. And also the thing that there are, I think something we've learnt maybe greatly from this, that there are no ultimate saviors, you know, and the idea that, you know, somebody's going to come along and save us, the you know, the knight in shining armor, or, you know,
government. Yeah, and we've lost a lot of faith in governments, and now we see that they're, you know, they're not perfect and they have their foibles, and some are actually dreadful. So we are learning, we need to take responsibility ourselves, which is that Saturn again.
Yeah, and the Chiron sextile as well, the Mars, I do love Chiron. You know, I know my own hypersensitivity now. I've heard that said, actually. I think Tom Jacobs actually said that, and I sort of stuck with me. He said, you know, rather than the wound and the heaviness of the wound, like the hypersensitivity, where the triggers where we're hypersensitive.
Well, I mean, Pisces is sensitive anyway, and then you've got Chiron there, so it's going to be very, it's very vulnerable, because it is in touch with all the, you know, the deeper nuances, and so it's very hurtful if reality, you know, that Saturn can be very harsh on it, because it's like reality, and it's too harsh.
And also, you know, realizing, you know, like I had that a week ago with a friendship situation where, you know, you realize the humanity, like you think, you know, the way we see people, and then the reality of what's going on in people's lives that maybe people are not sharing with us, and we can not have, you know, we can be lacking in empathy. So not to go on about, you know, where people maybe say that they're, you know, I'm an empath. So I think we've had this conversation, and Sam brought this up on YouTube, Sam Vaknin. He, you know, where he said that, you know, we don't want to be over grandiose with our ideas of, you know, well, I'm an empath and everybody else is, you know, a mess, and I'm not a narcissist.
Then that's just the shadow again, taking another form. It's making us seem we're all good, and actually that's the last thing we should be doing. We're supposed to be acknowledging where we're not good and not perfect, but we're not meant to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to touch on.
What's good about ourselves.
Absolutely. Sorry to interrupt you there. I interrupted you there. But I thought the Pluto, sorry guys, I haven't got my solar fire today. I didn't bring it up, so I don't want to come out of this video. I love looking at solar fire with Michaela as well and moving the chart around. But I thought a brief little look, a couple of years ago, I made a video for the EA group. It was on Pluto, and I made some notes. I had to write out my own little understanding. And, but this is really from study of evolutionary astrology, and then also other learnings over the years. But the Pluto, if we look at that Pluto moved into Capricorn 0 degrees, which would have been on the 25th of January 2008, and it's completing its cycle there on January the 21st 2024. So it's the end of a cycle. That it has been responsible for dismantling structures, and there's no doubt that it's fascinating to me, Michaela, that coming up here, as it's beginning to leave, Capricorn, how it's basically speeded up the dismantling of the structures.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just blown some of them apart, isn't it? Completely.
Absolutely.
It's a huge transformation, and it's quite amazing when you look at it that way. So, and that is the way to look at it, not just say, oh, these terrible things have happened to the world and to individuals, but say this is actually this is evolution. It's evolutionary. It's we've come a long way in a very, very quick time.
Yeah, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which we know for people who don't know. And then, the Saturn is a restriction, but it's also teacher. So it's like, you do a good job, and then, the rewards come. But not, again, no bypassing there or being exact to be afraid of anything. It's just, our evolution. And we needed the change so desperately, because when people were saying, oh, I want to go back to normal, I was really thinking myself, well, that wasn't normal. And I think a lot of us are clocking that now, that what we thought was normal was not normal.
Yeah, exactly. It's odd, isn't it, saying back to normal, but it wasn't.
No, thank you.
That was an illusion.
So then Pluto in Capricorn is where the old cycles and phases come to an end. And it's where we have to self-reflect and examine our internal and our other structures that we experience in what we call reality. And in the contemplation, we then acquire new self-knowledge. And then when we look at the structures of our own life, we can begin to eliminate that's what no longer works or applies. So we've seen this happen with people that have, lost their jobs through the COVID, and even if that job is there to go back to, people are saying, I don't want that anymore.
Yes, exactly. So what we refuse to let go of, we've been forced to let go of. But then, as it's made us think, actually, we were holding on to something that maybe wasn't the best anyway.
Yeah. Or people even ideas of wanting to make money, which is that, the Capricorn, the financial crisis at the beginning of that Pluto moving into Capricorn, where it showed people.
Uranus in Taurus, which is about it, the financial crisis as well.
Uranus in Taurus.
Which now, going into, I mean, we are in a financial crisis now, and that is going to grow. But that's so the whole thing, yes, it started when Uranus was with Pluto in Capricorn, but this is just another stage of it. It never really went away. Our lesson is still going on with the financial.
Yeah. And then also that Pluto, it's, this is basically where, what we can do with that. Capricorn is about being mature as well. It's, the public image to the world, and then being on maturity. So it's a time, it's not a time to blame, but it's actually a time for deep reflection, as you would as an adult. You sit there and you'd have deep reflection over things, and that growth can occur, but existing responsibilities and obligations must be looked at. We can't grow, we don't want to just build on, structures now that are wobbly. We want to really look at what we're doing.
By the same token, we don't want to just tear down every structure willy-nilly. There is that danger, isn't there, with Uranus in Taurus, that we just want to tear the whole thing down, which you see in people. You're seeing, oh my God, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I'm familiar with that, with the Scorpio, with my Scorpio on my Scorpio rising, where I've done that in my past, where, I can literally want to just annihilate everything. And I've had to watch that in myself.
Yeah, but you have watched it. You've been able to stand back from it. And now you're getting, all that in Pisces, in your fourth is trining your Scorpio, Neptune,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay. We'll have a quick look
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
So
So
I
it's
think,
trining your stuff in Scorpio, and it's sextiling your stuff in Taurus.
oh,
So
wow, it's a good one. So, and also, you know, it's time for courage and, you know, to look at our judgments as well, that and our parental judgments and those of society, because there's been a lot of unfair judgments that have gone on that can be very harmful to ourselves, because always when we're pointing one finger, three fingers are pointing back at us. I don't know who said that, but there's truth in that.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And
But yeah,
sorry.
go on. No, go on.
Yeah, some judgment is relevant, but you know, but there's a lot of stuff that's outdated and useless at this time. We can see this in so many different
Yeah,
areas.
there is, and so it's good to keep that going, but at the same point, yes, have some discernment that we do need government. I mean, we do
Of
need
course.
we do need laws. We need, yeah, we so to actually go to Uranian, as I said, is a bad idea as well, because we could just end up destroying the whole lot, and where would we be then?
So do you think that Saturn, maybe that Saturn application applying to Uranus is where that we're basically you know, I mean, we'll balance that out again.
Yeah.
If you go, for instance, if I go back to my chart here, you said I've got all of that trining, which is nice because you see this is the thing, you've seen that there. So this is all trining up to here, and then it's sextiling to this stuff here, which is actually quite lovely.
Yes, and your nodes are right there. You know, Scorpio, Taurus are your nodes, and it's all trining, and Pluto in Capricorn is trining your North Node, which is very powerful, and sextiling. So you've got those outer planets are making beautiful trines and sextiles to your nodes and the planets around your nodes.
So I think, you know, the most important message here is that, you know, I think for me, astrology is such a useful tool. It's you know, over the years, you know, people have different thoughts and understanding of it, but it's very psychology based because it helps one to, you know, look at themselves. It's like looking at yourself, you know, on a chart, and then being able to question. And when you talk with another about what's happening on that chart, like when you've helped me understand things about my own chart that I don't see, and this is the beauty of astrology when we share this information.
Yes, it's a wonderful mirror, isn't it? It's like a mirror in the heavens of our lives. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. So I think that's it for today. Just one quick look at your chart before we sign off today. Is there anything that you want to show on your chart here and that you've got?
Well, I mean, you've got, yeah, I mean, the Chiron, of course, is opposite my Mercury at the moment, pretty much almost exactly. So it's going in for that. And of course, it's been, you know, it was a while ago, it was opposing my Venus, and now it's opposing my
I see here,
yeah, my Mercury in Libra. And then it's going to oppose my sun. So it's been working through that. I mean, in my solar chart, and it's good to look at solar charts as well. So from my sun's position, that is your chart from your sun.
Do you mean the solar return, or do you mean the
I mean your solar chart. So you can, particularly if you don't have a birth chart, you can use a solar chart, which is putting the sun on the ascendant, making the sun the actual ascendant of the chart. And that shows you, that is the houses according to the sun. So the sun is the center of the chart. So that's your life's path according to your sun. So it's a very relevant thing to do, even if you do have your ascendant, you have your birth time.
Yes.
Is to actually look at the solar chart as well. It gives you another perspective from
I'd love to do that. Could we make a short video maybe at some point looking at yours and my chart, and show me how to do that and show people how they can use that?
Definitely. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I'd love to do that because I've never really understood that before. That would be great. But that's it for today. I'd like to finish it there. If you've got anything else you'd like to say?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And that's it. And we'll be back again with the full moon. I haven't looked where it's going to be. Where's it going to be? Have you got any idea?
In 2 weeks.
It's in 2 weeks. That's all we need to know. It's definitely happening. It's definitely happening. although a lot of things are not happening or might happen, we definitely know there is going to be a full moon. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, Michaela, and I'll see you soon. Okay,
That'll be great. Bye bye.
catch you later. Thanks.